Hey, good Tuesday morning to you, Pastor Harold. Today is Up with the Sun. Is the 18th of February. We're in First Corinthians chapter 7, and we'll be in the first half this morning. Now, regarding the questions you asked in your letter, yes, it is good to abstain from sexual relations. But because there is so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. The husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. Afterward, you should come together again so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. I say this as concession, not as a command. But I wish everyone were single, just as I am. Yet each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. So I say to those who aren't married and to widows, it's better to stay unmarried, just as I am. But if they can't control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. But for those who are married, I have a command that comes not from me, but from the Lord. A wife must not leave her husband. But if she does leave him, let her remain single or else be reconciled to him. And the husband must not leave his wife. Now I will speak to the rest of you, though I do not have a direct command from the Lord. If a fellow believer has a wife who is not a believer and she is willing to continue living with him, but he must not leave her. And if a believing woman has a husband who is not a believer and he is willing to continue living with her, she must not leave him. For the believing wife brings holiness to her marriage, and the believing husband brings holiness to his marriage. Otherwise, your children would not be holy, but now they are holy. But if the husband or the wife who isn't a believer insists on leaving, let them go. In such cases, the believing husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for God has called you to live in peace. Don't your wives realize that your husbands might be saved because of you? And don't your husbands realize that your wives might be saved because of you? Each of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you, and remain as you were when God first called you. This is my rule for all the churches. For instance, a man who is circumcised before he became a believer should not try to reverse it, and the man who is uncircumcised when he became a believer should not be circumcised now. For it makes no difference whether or not a man has been circumcised. The important thing is to keep God's commandments. So here he's talking directly to sexual morality as he finished up in chapter 6, and he's saying if you have sexual morality in your life and you can't control yourself, you should find a husband or wife, a good godly one that's equally yoked to you. He's talking to that. He says here that you should fulfill each other's needs and give authority to your spouse over you, and that the equalness in seeking God. And he says that if you aren't married, then and if you're a widow, it's best to stay unmarried, like he said he was. But it's a difficult life if you've been given that ability to not have that desire in your life. He says it's better not to marry again. But he says it's better to marry again if you have that desire. He used the word lust here, but desire. But he said for those that are married, you need to stay married, even if you're unequally yoked. He said for the sake of the children and the sake of possibly having that person convert into Christianity, if they're willing to listen. Because he says if they want to leave, you let them go. But if they want to stay, then you're still required to stay with them. And then he says that we should continue to live in whatever situation we're in. And I think this is important. This part here, he's kind of shadowed here, but he's saying if you were circumcised before you became a believer, then don't try to reverse it. He's saying for a person who comes to God, so you have a person who in your midst or whatever, who may be a divorced man or woman who comes to the church and becomes a believer. They're not telling them to go reconcile that divorce, not go back. I mean, if it becomes that possibility, sure, but it's not a requirement. It's not it's not has to happen. It doesn't please God. It says to take the person from where they are forward. The destruction's happened, and it doesn't want to create even more destruction. So it's important that we take people from where they are and move them forward. So we don't want to mutilate. We don't want them to hurt themselves. We don't want them to hurt themselves spiritually, emotionally, or physically. So I want to pray with you, and then we'll let you go for this Tuesday morning. Father God, thank you for the time to come on here. I thank you for the many blessings. I just ask you to be over the church. I said this in my sermon on Sunday. I wanted to pray specifically. I want to pray for you to bring to us an additional pastor to join the church with his family in the next 3 months to help us solidify the pastoral staff so that we can be better suited to take care of your mission for our specific church. I ask that you be with those that are sick and grieving. We lift them up to your healing hands. We ask that you put a hedge of protection around us as we move in this world. Give us that ability, Lord, to hear what you have to tell us, to move one step into your direction as you asked us. In faith, we step forward. I ask these things in Jesus' name.